Says go. So it's Saturday morning. Welcome to Soup and Meatballs. Folks, strap in. There's a ton of stuff to talk about. Tim and I may be here until Tuesday. Tim, how are we doing this morning?
Mustachioed and glorious. How are you doing?
I'm bearded up, and homecoming last night at the local high school was a good time. The home team came out on top, which was good. Derek rocked out at halftime. Can't complain. So I'm ready for what really is probably going to be our best show ever. Definitely our best show this week.
I think we just keep getting better, much like a fine wine.
So do I. I mean, I don't know about fine wine, but we're a glorious mid-level Bordeaux.
We're an affordable middle shelf wine.
Yeah, it's like the good stuff in the back in the fridge.
You save it for the anniversary.
Breaking news. For those of you who think that we just talk, we prep a little bit. We put our rundown together on Thursday. I thought, hey, we're locked in, and just reported last night, the New York Knicks have acquired Karl Anthony Towns from Minnesota in return for Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, and a Detroit Piston first-round pick. That's what sources are telling us. As someone who has a rooting interest with the Knicks, my first thought was, wow, Karl Anthony Towns, that's neat. But when I started to think more about it this morning, I think Towns and Randle are roughly equal. So it's kind of like the Knicks are just giving up DiVincenzo and a first-rounder.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So, a little peek behind the curtain. You and I were texting about this before. And like I said, it feels like the rare example of a trade where both teams got hosed. Because exactly like you said, I feel like Randle and Towns are extremely comparable. There's a lot of overlap. What's that?
There are the numbers right there on the screen. So, our crack graphic staff put this together with 10 minutes before showtime.
That's pretty well done, actually.
They're straight up equal. And if you look, Julius Randle, I think, has one extra season played. Towns has appeared in 2 more playoffs and 1 more All-Star game, for whatever that's worth. I've seen actually both sides of this. I'm with you. I kind of think that both teams lost out. Minnesota was 7 games away from the finals last year. That's kind of the team you want to run back. And the Knicks, I agree. DiVincenzo's the kind of role player that teams look for. And I don't think Detroit's going to be all that good this year. So you're losing a pretty solid piece of draft capital, all because I don't think Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson ever figured out their pick and roll.
Yeah, they didn't seem to mesh that well. It'll be interesting to see how Cat and Brunson play. If I had to declare a winner in this trade, I would sort of lean toward the Wolves just because I'm very high on DiVincenzo. He gave the Knicks a lot of quality minutes off the bench. He's a great clutch shooter. I'm happy to have him as a Celtics fan. Glad to have him out of the division. Get out of here, Dante DiVincenzo. Go darken someone else's door, But this trade feels like a big nothing burger for as many big names that are involved. It just feels like just shuffling pieces around on a chessboard.
It was referred to as the biggest blockbuster of the offseason. But have we had any other trades this offseason?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and
just because you have big names involved, it's not a. I don't think it's a franchise-altering trade for either. I think both of them are still going to be about where they are. If Randle's healthy, Randle was hurt most of the season, late in the year for the Knicks, and Towns has had his problem with injuries as well. So, it's a big we'll see for me as far as blockbusters go.
Yeah, that's the other big caveat, especially because big men age so poorly. Just their joints wear down, once a big man gets past 28, 29, 30 years old, that's when you start to see Shaquille O'Neal in a Phoenix Suns jersey,
or a Cleveland Cavaliers jersey,
or Patrick Ewing in a Magic jersey,
Yeah,
just limping down the floor. So we'll see how this plays out, but I don't think it's going to shift the balance of power in either conference.
Well, it's a big old we'll see, and it's nice that we were able to get breaking news out there. Back to your regularly scheduled Soup and Meatballs here, as today in college football, a very, very big game as far as ratings go, rankings go. We have 4 at number 2, but I'll tell you what, these are 2 big name programs looking to advance very deep into the playoffs. Early on this year, was it a couple weeks ago, Georgia looked pretty wobbly against Kentucky. Alabama hasn't really played anybody yet. Wisconsin looked like a big game, but it really wasn't. Looking deep into this, Kirby Smart 1-5 against the Crimson Tide with Saban there, but Kalen DeBoer is in. He's 12-2 against ranked opponents, so it's not like he's a pushover. I think the game comes down to whoever does a better job of getting pressure on the quarterback. If you look at the SEC title game from last year, Alabama brings back 60% of that offensive line and an upgraded center, but Georgia brings back their defensive line. So whoever gets more pressure on the other quarterback, to me, that's who's going to win this relatively meaningless big game early in the year. What do you think, Tim?
I'm not high on Georgia, and I haven't been since the preseason. I like Alabama, and I feel pretty confident that Alabama's going to win this game. I would love to have a game as entertaining as that SEC title game last year, where Alabama somehow, miraculously pulled it out. I don't think they're going to need miracles today, though. I could see Alabama winning, by double digits, something like 10 points.
A double-digit win. I know there's at least one of our fans who's going to like hearing that.
Yeah, I'm Team Bob Gemelli.
I don't think it's going to be. I mean, obviously, what I know about college football is very minimal. Remember, I had USC by 40 last week. That was the magic of the pick, though. Wait till you see what the prediction is this week.
I bet actual American dollars that USC would beat Michigan. So what do I know?
I have Alabama winning a close one. I think it's going to – I have it 23-21. And the main reason for that, yes, Alabama has 3 returning starters on the offensive line, but I've always been down on one of them. And I hate to shame a college kid on the interwebs, but one of their offensive tackles had the worst footwork I've ever seen in a Division I lineman last year. And he's been hurt this year, so I don't know if he's going to play or not. Milroe's going to have to run. But I think Milroe can. That's the thing. Milroe's looked really strong this year, but this is the first real test for Alabama. And I'm giving it to them largely because they're at home. It's a night game at home. I think Bryant Denny's going to be rocking. But I guess I'm a little higher on Georgia than you are. Georgia's a really good team. They're very well coached, and then to me that's big. I think Kirby Smart goes into this with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder since Saban's gone, and he wants to start off the series with DeBoer a little bit, better than it ended with Saban at least. But either way, I mean, here's another question for you, Tim. We have a 12-game playoff. Does that ruin a game like this for you?
I wouldn't say ruin, but it takes the shine off it a little bit, certainly. We talked last week about that Notre Dame Florida State game from '93. We're still talking about that, 31 years later, because that was it. There wasn't even a BCS at that time. It was 1, it was 2, and the loser was theoretically, although Florida State won the title that year, their season was essentially going to be
primarily thanks to Glenn Foley and Boston College. Let's give credit to where it's due there. But I'm sort of with you. I enjoy having the playoff in place. I think it's good for college sports. I mean, if it works for
I
basketball, it
agree.
should work for football. And when the original top four was put together, a lot of talking heads that you would see on TV, they bemoaned it, saying it's going to kill the regular season. I want to see what the rating is for this game, because I don't think it's going to get killed. I think a ton of people are still going to watch. I think the interest is going to be there. Like when you see the fans at Alabama tonight, it's going to be an electric atmosphere. All it does is it allows for the potential to get this again later, because I think you're going to see it again. I think both of these teams are going to be the top two in the SEC, so I think you're going to see them in the SEC title game. And then you might see a round 3. What worried me about this kind of system was I was never sure if I was going to be able to handle multiple Michigan-Ohio State games.
Yeah.
There's our segue to this week's Michigan game, because I invariably it's going to happen. I mean, it happened to Duke, North Carolina, where they played each other in the NCAA tournament. I think it was a Final Four game too, right?
And it was, and it's wild it took that long for it to happen.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we're riding down that path where you're going to see the game, and then you're going to see the playoff game.
Right, but here's the thing: there's always going to be an audience to see greatness against greatness. And you would like the stakes to be higher, like we were talking about with, Florida State and Notre Dame from '93, but it's still going to be a hell of a good show. I think the
stakes will build. It'll build as the year goes on. If you see the rematch coming down the line, just because they're playing today, I don't think the game will get any less valuable in December or in the playoff situation. I don't know. I'm just wondering, because all of what I heard was the regular season was a playoff. And my argument against that was, well, if the regular season was a playoff, why do we have a one-loss national champion? They lost in the regular season. They should be out. That's what a playoff is. And there was never an answer to that.
It's just, the further, I'm going to coin a word here, the NFLization of college football, where, the first time the Eagles went to the Super Bowl, they beat the Cowboys in the NFC Championship game. So did that make the 2 times they met that regular season any less meaningful? No. It just made the NFC Championship game that much more dramatic. So that's what we'll see, Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State. It's still going to be dramatic in the regular season. But then
I just don't know if I can handle it. That's the thing.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure my cardiologist will up my metropol.
That's going to be that's future Tim's problem. That's future Max's problem. Current Tim and current Max's issue, the battle for the little brown jug. Do you know the story of the little brown jug?
I know it dates back to the late 1893 or something like that.
This is great. As I'm writing my pregame notes, I came across this, and I knew it, but I had to get refreshed. As the story goes, Fielding Yost was worried about a Minnesota team that was coming in to the game they were playing. I think Minnesota was 10-0, Michigan was 7-0, and Michigan was on a 29-game winning streak, as my notes say. So Fielding Yost takes a student manager named Thomas Roberts, and he tells him to purchase a water jug. And Roberts comes back from the Red Wing Pottery Jug Center, 30 cents he buys this thing. And that's what Michigan was going to use during this game to drink out of. And when the game was over, it was a tie. And after all the chaos, the equipment manager for Minnesota took the jug and wrote the score on it. And he wrote the Minnesota score larger than Michigan's. And then 3 years later, when the teams met again, Minnesota's athletic director proposed that the winner take home the jug as a reward. And Michigan won that game 15-6. And hence the legend of the little brown jug was born, and kind of see it there with all the scores written down. What's cool about this to me is the Michigan M and the Minnesota M are on either side of it. And this is one of the coolest trophies in sports, I think.
Yeah, and we talked about it last week when we were talking about fight songs. Like, this is the charm of college football, that you have two teams, conference rivals, playing for more than 100 years for a 30-cent jug. They're going to bang heads for 4 quarters so that someone can lift a 30-cent, 130-year-old jug.
It's the third oldest. This is the third oldest rivalry trophy in college football.
Is it older than the Stanley Cup? I think it's older than the Stanley Cup.
It very well might be. That'd be something for our viewers to look up, because it's hockey and it's beyond my recognition. Arizona and Arizona State play for the Territorial Cup. That's older. And Miami of Ohio and Cincinnati play for the Victory Bell. That's a year older than that. So the third oldest trophy, a 30-cent jug. And I'll tell you what, as far as the game goes, this one might harken us back to those 1903 games, because Michigan is, spoiler alert, they're going to try to run the ball.
Yeah, they might run it 45 times again like they did against USC. And I am all for it, by the way.
44 carries. They ran for 290 big yards. Kalen Mullings had a huge day, especially on the last drive with that really big run. When Michigan took over down by, what was it, 4, all I could do was bemoan and curse the missed extra point that they had, thinking, well, now we have to score a touchdown, and we have 2 minutes to do it. Good luck with a running attack. But Mullings breaks a big one. And then on third down, it was a third down or second down, like inside the 3, they decided to throw the ball.
That was second down, because then they ran it on the last 2 downs.
Okay. But Mullings gets in, pandemonium. Wolverines are going to run. They are, so out of 133 teams, where do you think they rank passing?
Oh, they've got to be in the hundreds somewhere. 125?
128. Well done.
Woo-hoo!
After a day where Alex Orji went 7 of 12 for 32 yards.
It's like a high school box score. It's like what we used to do in like 1996, where we would throw the ball 5 times.
I can quick look up the box score of the homecoming game yesterday. The quarterback for my home team threw for 191. So he had a better day than
Michigan's recruiting.
Michigan has a quarterback recruit, I think, from IMG, but like that's down the line. As far as this week, if Orji doesn't find a passing game, and with Colston Loveland questionable again, I don't know. It's going to be hard for them to really pull away. I think they're stronger than Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota allowed 270 yards rushing last week to Iowa, 4 touchdowns on the ground to Iowa. And, Michigan's a little stronger than Iowa running the ball.
Isn't it wild to you that the defending national champion doesn't have a better option at quarterback? Can you think of a defending national champion in your lifetime that has brought back a team with worse quarterback options than Michigan has this year?
Did Nebraska win the national championship in 95?
Yeah, but they actually had a quarterback.
Just because I hate Scott Frost.
Well, Scott Frost was 97, but I remember when Nebraska, Tommy Frazier had the blood clot. They had a quarterback controversy when Tommy Frazier got healthy. It was Brooks Behringer and Tommy Frazier, who kind of there was like a lot of conversation about who Tom Osborne should start. So they had 2 viable option quarterbacks.
How about Florida after Tebow left? Who came in after him?
That I can't remember. I was trying to think like after Jameis left Florida State in 2013.
Yeah.
Because Florida State kind of fell off for a little bit there. But I mean, Michigan certainly.
But no, this 32-yard passing performance is historically poor for a team that wins a game at home, which, I mean, I will appreciate and hang with the win, largely based on, Will Johnson had a great read and pick six. That was a big play. The defense played as well as they could play against the USC offense that was supposed to be pretty good, especially passing the ball.
In the first half. They were lights out.
Yeah. And USC, they adjusted and they got back into it. Obviously, they took a late lead. But I don't think Michigan struggles as much with Minnesota, but I also don't think they pull away. I think I have it down. I wrote it down. 28-13 is my prediction. 15-point win. Comfortable, but not like we're not putting the third string quarterback in.
This isn't an offense that's going to be dropping 40 and 50 points on teams. It's not the same as it was last year. This is a team that's going to grind it out. And
like you said, I'm okay with that. I'm
me too.
That's
Michigan football.
I was at the game, my high school game last night. I was sitting next to a kid that I used to coach. He had come in for homecoming, and we were just talking about what's going on. The other team had a fullback who was just this really big guy, and they were running a power eye offense, and I was excited. Like I root for my home team, but like when I watch the other teams, I get excited watching power eye, and they were running it, and they had a fullback who ripped off like a 60-yard run. I think it was called back for holding, but he's a big dude, and it reminds me of Smash Mouth, powerhouse, Bob Schnee, Cavs like football.
I legitimately love watching like run blocking. Like when one team is just dominating another up front and they're just, the big guys are eating. Like I live for that. That's so great.
And then the other team would throw this stupid like spread shuffle pass motion, the speed option. And I go, I'm tired of that. Give 42 the ball because he's big. But our guys came out on top, which was awesome. Michigan style football. I'm going with powerhouse stuff in our world, in the world of PSAC. IUP and Bloomsburg open up, with their half of the PSAC. IUP has Clarion this week, and Clarion coming in is they're 2-2, and IUP hasn't lost to Clarion since 2011, as I'm looking at my notes. But this year, I hadn't thought about this yet. This is IUP's first home game. They started out on the road 3 straight games, and they only have 4 home games this year because they lost a game to Mercyhurst, made the jump to Division I.
Oh yeah.
So they lose that home game. Next week, it's homecoming week against Slippery Rock. And Slippery Rock was the odds-on favorite to win the West, so I don't know if this is a trap game. I don't think it will be. I think IUP comes out and does what they have to do. But, you don't want to look ahead to that Slippery Rock game because Clarion can come in and pull the upset just like that. Meanwhile, Bloomsburg has Westchester. What do you know about Westchester?
Well,
besides they're in trouble.
So the big thing today is they're honoring former coach Danny Hale.
Danny Hale was a Westchester guy, right?
He was, yeah. And
it's cool that they're doing it this game.
Yeah, well, he's being inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. The field's named after him. He was the coach when I was in school. Great coach, great guy. I know Westchester traditionally is very good. I don't know much about them this year, but BU is very surprising. They won a thriller last week.
There's our records.
Yeah, let me put my glasses here.
I mean, Westchester, I tell you.
Oh, God. That's why they scheduled Westchester.
They played Seton Hill last week, turned the ball over 5 times, and Seton Hill took a 3-point win. They did have Westchester still had a chance to win at the end, but another turnover kind of knocked them out. So Bloomsburg picking up the win, 2-1. They're right there in the East, like you said.
And they're one bad fourth quarter away from being undefeated. Bloomsburg.
3-0,
yeah. I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback today. They had KJ Riley, who is from he's a local to me. He played his high school ball at Danville, and he had a really good game last week and a really strong drive to march BU down the field almost too quickly because Edinburgh got the ball with time left. But yeah, BU is a very pleasant surprise this year.
The one thing that surprised me about Clarion, as I was looking things up, trying to find out, do the scouting report for the game, the quarterback for Clarion, Anthony Gercio. I have no idea if I hammered his name. He has my permission to hammer mine. This guy leads the conference in total touchdowns and total offense. He's averaging 313 yards per game passing and running. And Clarion has a defensive lineman who leads the conference in sacks. They've played 4 games. He has 5.5 sacks.
Wow.
So
they've got talent.
Clarion at 2-2 is maybe a misnomer. Westchester at 0-3, like we said, was one drive away. They could have been 1-2. Bloomsburg could be 3-0. That's the cool part to me about D2 football is the competition is usually pretty close. And in today's age, I can find these games online. Like a couple of years ago, it was like, okay, I'm going to just follow on Twitter and see if the IUP football account posts a score, maybe a video. All these games are broadcast now, which is really cool. So I can sit with my tablet while I'm watching Michigan on the big screen. I can have IUP down here. It's a football smorgasbord. Did I get that word right?
Smorgasbord.
Smorgasbord. I don't know what that word means, but it's a bevy of football, which is great. It's kind of a bummer that I'm not in college anymore because the kids who are there get a lot of cool firsthand experience on how to do broadcasts. And
and it's funny that you make that point because I remember in 2000 when I was in school and BU made their run to the national championship. In the national semifinal, they played out in California against UC Davis.
Okay. Was that an ESPN game?
It was not. The only way I could follow along was like this very staticky feed on like an old it was my CD player / radio.
AM radio.
Yeah, I had to listen on AM radio from across the country.
The AM radio. The old man left it on the truck.
It was truly, it was like, it was like 1940 and I was listening to like a Joe Louis boxing match.
I guess that's kind of cool in its own little, cute little way.
It has its charm, but I think it just goes to show how far we've come in 20 years or 25 years.
You know what I remember about the 2000 Bloomsburg team? So every year, I don't know if it was you and I might have, but Norm and I had a cigar bet on the IUP Bloomsburg game every year.
Yeah.
And IUP won my freshman year, my sophomore year, my junior year. My senior year, I was doing the Wayne Persang Sports Train, which was a TV show very similar to the Sports Reporters. And you were rocking out the Bloomsburg newspaper with some guy named Professor X.
That's right.
And I would read your stuff because honestly, for the Soup and Meatballs people in the world, like this guy is a tremendous author. His writing style is great. Forget about it. But so I would read your stuff, but then Professor X would do this opinion thing, and because of the magic of Web 2.0, I was able to comment and talk all kinds of smack because that's what you did in college. And Professor X and I made a bet. And I said, if IUP wins, you've got to write a whole article about how, me and IUP are better, whatever that was. And if Bloomsburg wins, I'll dedicate my final thought on the sports show. and Bloomsburg. I don't know what the score was, but Bloomsburg won. And I remember that week we had different panelists that would go live on our show, and I was one of the rotating. We had a host, and then we had 3 rotating spots, and I lost the coin flip. But I told the producer, I'm like, look, no, I showed him the email. Like, I have to do this because if I don't, like, I'm going back on a bet, and I'm not trying to do that. So Professor X actually got me on the show that week because I had to do the whole final thought praising him, and it's kind of a neat little memory back in 2000.
I still get people who ask me who Professor X was. For anyone watching,
you remember who he was?
Sure, we're still friends.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
I remember two of the panelists. One I'm still Facebook friends with. He became an actor out in Los Angeles, but he moved back to Pittsburgh. And then the one guy's name was Aaron Henry, and that's why we called him Hank, because it was instead of Henry Aaron, we called him Hank. That's the only reason I remember that guy's name.
Yeah. So for anyone watching, Professor X was a columnist for our college paper, but the columnist like mugshot that ran with his column was just a silhouette.
It was like a black silhouette. Yeah, that's right.
Right. And so like everyone on campus, because he would write like very like provocative, controversial things, and he would, certainly make people angry.
Hide behind the silhouette.
And like I would have people on campus come up to me and be like, who's this Professor X guy? You gotta tell me. I'd be like, and the guy who, and I was not Professor X, by the way. But
that would be funny if you were, because
yeah, like it's like
DB Cooper reveal. It was you all the time.
It's like DB Cooper, where we'll find out like who it was like 50 years in the future, like after he's long dead. But yeah, we were all like, I still remember being in the newspaper offices in the Kerr Union, and we were all sworn to secrecy. So
that's neat. I like that. Tell him I said hi. And
I'll let him know.
We won't have we don't get an IUP Bloomsburg bet this year. Maybe next year. Oh.
Yeah, got to keep the mystery.
I absolutely. There we go. So good day in football. Good day in football. And amazingly now, baseball is heating up. And there are 3, and you know what? We skipped a college football story that I'm just thinking of now, because the baseball stories, a lot of them deal with money. Do you want a quick touch on the UNLV quarterback situation? Yeah. I don't even have a slide for that.
Yeah, well, and I can't remember the quarterback's name, but he was promised $100,000 in NIL money from UNLV, and they didn't give it to him. And so he was like, well, then I'm not playing.
So it's essentially, I think his name is Sluka. I don't know, Sluka. Sluka, yeah, Matthew Sluka.
That's right.
He was from Holy Cross, had a good year, right. And they promised him $100,000, and he came in and he played a couple games, and UNLV is ranked now, I believe.
Yeah, they're 3-0. And I've seen a lot of people like kind of crying about this, or being like, oh, like, how can he do this to his team? But like,
this guy's not going to be an NFL quarterback. I mean, he's
got to make his money while he can.
And $100,000 is not life changing, but I'll tell you what, it's not a bad start. You take that $100,000 when you graduate college. Let's say he goes into marketing or whatever he goes into. You take that $100,000 and just straight up invest it. Like, okay, I'm a college kid. Theoretically, he got a scholarship. He's not paying for his education, so you don't have to worry about student debt, hopefully. But if I don't have that $100,000, I'm just starting my life like you and I did. We just tried to build up our savings. He's got $100,000 he can invest right now. If he does it properly, he can retire when he's 45 and just golf. And that's a big deal for a kid like that.
To me, it's perfect. It's so fitting that this happened at UNLV, because all the people who are crying about him not wanting to play, and they're talking about like the old way of doing things. Think about the way UNLV used to do things, where they would promise kids money under the table.
The Jerry Tarkanian days.
Yeah, the old Run Rebels. And, just say UNLV didn't want to make good on $100,000 that they promised the kid when it wasn't legal. What recourse did that kid have? What, was he going to go to the NCAA and be like, I transferred because they promised me money?
Basically, Ogman saying, look, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to Kentucky now where they have money.
Right. Yeah, the NCAA would have to prove that UNLV did this. Meanwhile, the kid just ratted on himself and he would be in trouble with the NCAA.
Yeah.
So at least this system, the athletes have some recourse.
What would have happened back at it would have broken like the Fab Five story with Uncle Eddie.
Exactly.
So here's what I think is going to come of this eventually. So the kid didn't get any of this in writing. He didn't have a lawyer. I think we're going to see eventually, you said the NFLization of college football. We're going to have collective bargaining. You're going to have agents try to figure out a way to build contracts with these kids so that this doesn't happen. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's just going to be a thing. Right.
I agree with that. I don't attach any, negative or positive to it. I will say, I think it's a positive in that the old system was basically an indentured servitude where the college could make so much money off of a player's name and likeness.
The old heads will come in and say, you're getting a free college education.
Yeah, because that's why all these athletes are going to college.
And what do I do with my 12 concussions when I can't remember what my name was yesterday?
And look, if the NFL was taking kids right from high school, how many of these guys would really be going to college, right?
Yeah, while I don't disagree with that, I think the NFL policy of 3 years out of high school probably a good thing, just because of the size difference of these kids. Like, I wouldn't want to take the number one high school recruit at quarterback and say, all right, I'm the Carolina Panthers and I'm going to draft this kid. That you would need a minor league system, but I think that's what college football essentially is.
Right. Yeah, and college football is AAA baseball.
And giving these kids AAA level salaries, which is what $100,000 is compared to what the first round pick gets in the NFL. That's something. So Sluka, I think, is a name that will resound in college football business news for a while if a CBA is attached. This is the kind of thing that ran Jim Harbaugh out of Michigan, by the way. Harbaugh was attacked by the NCAA because he vouched for kids getting paid by schools, and the NCAA didn't like it. So
yeah, and that's what bothers me about the traditionalists is they want to go back to a system that was essentially unfair to the athletes.
And
it's.
I agree with that.
I was going to extend that comparison, but I'll keep it where it was.
That's it. Okay, that works. So let's financially now, because we're going to have some sad stories here coming up. This one, as a Yankee fan, you would think it wouldn't bother me as much, but it's not new news. It's old news now that the Oakland Athletics played their final game in Oakland. Thursday, they had a 3-2 win over Texas in front of a crowd of 46,889. The sellout crowd there, in spite of owner John Fisher. Fisher wrote a letter to the fans. I'm not sure if you saw this. It was certainly not well received by the fans. Fisher has to be among the least popular owners in all of sports. I mean, Oakland had Oakland had a reverse boycott where the fans largely they didn't come out because the team was bad and they didn't want to give Fisher money. But it was last year they held a reverse boycott where they sold out the stadium simply to chant, sell the team, sell the team, sell the team. And they did. They sold out one game just to prove, hey, we're still here, but we don't want you around.
And also, maybe fans would come out if you put a decent product out there.
Eighth richest owner in baseball, I think.
And I think it was Buster Olney who had tweeted out about, like, why do other owners allow this to happen? Because they want to have the option to move their team if a richer deal comes along sometime in the future. It's a billionaires club that they all belong in, and the only thing that matters is what will make them the most money.
More money. And when you talk about moving, what's funny to me is that Oakland, the move, I guess, is to Vegas, but they're going to play in Sacramento, of all
That
places.
famous baseball hotbed, Sacramento, California.
I found an article when I wanted to see if Vegas, what the money situation was. I found an article from February. Yahoo had a headline: Las Vegas mayor on A's planned relocation. They've got to figure out a way to stay in Oakland. That's coming from the Vegas mayor. That's coming fresh right from Las Vegas. They have to figure out a way to stay in Oakland. And I've seen a couple videos on TikTok. I'm going to try something new here. So you get your glasses on, see if this works.
Okay.
I don't know if it'll play or it won't because we're live. No, it doesn't look like it'll play. So, this is such a bummer. There was a video of the last out in Oakland where they had the music from Moneyball playing.
I saw
and the fans cheering. It's on. We'll give them a shout out. It's on the MLB on Fox on TikTok, so you can look it up on your own. I'm a Yankee guy. I root for U.S. Steel, right? The little guys in Oakland, whatever. We'll steal your Jason Giambis, and Boston will steal your Johnny Damons, and that's okay with me. But there's a little bit of me that feels bad for the Oakland fans who hung with the team through those tough years where they were gutted in the wild card rounds, and they had the big three pitching staff to root for, and it's a bummer.
It's a franchise with a lot of wonderful history dating back to Philadelphia. Stretching from Jimmy Fox to the Reggie Jackson Catfish Hunter championship teams, the early 70s. Right up through the Smash Brothers or the Bash Brothers.
Bash Brothers.
I was combining Bash Brothers and Splash Brothers.
There you go.
But yeah, the Bash Brothers and then the Moneyball A's of the early 2000s. And also, I don't love franchises going to Vegas. I don't love the way that gambling has infiltrated professional sports. I don't love the way that it calls into question the integrity of the games. I mean, we saw it in the NBA.
The best thing that happened to Shohei Ohtani was this 50-50 year because people have forgotten about the gambling.
Yeah, but look at the NBA last season where a player was banned for life because he was shaving points to help people, bet on parlays. That's not the last we're going to hear of that. We're going to have more, Tim Donaghy's.
I don't necessarily think a team in Vegas increases those odds. I think it draws more attention to it, though. So,
I think it's emblematic of where sports are headed, though.
Where you're heading, sure. I think the bigger issue is can a small market exist? And I think the answer is not on its own. You have to have the 8th richest owner in baseball willing to pay a little bit out of his pockets. Where, I mean, if we drafted or we looked at the stingiest owners in all of sports.
Look at the cheapskates in Pittsburgh.
Well,
sending guys down to the minors so they can't get thank you.
What a great segue in other financial news, like you said. When was the last time the Pirates found themselves in a headline in late September? And this time around, it's because of a 6'4", 270-pound first baseman named Rowdy. Yeah.
The Pirates have been entertaining.
That they have one of the best young pitchers in the game.
Right.
They have actually two of them. Skeens and Jones are.
Yeah, you have the all-star starter for the National League, who has been maybe the most talked about pitcher in the game, certainly in the first half of the season, because he was such a pleasant surprise.
Early in the year, they kept him in the minors, and whether that was a service time thing or not, who knows? But from what I read, there was more of an innings limit on him, and that allows him to pitch now, like today, in a big game against the Yankees. Which, yeah, that's what you want to see. That's fine. Inning limits, that's whatever. But here's this kid who Rowdy Tellez he came in from Milwaukee. He was kind of mid. He had a really good June. I think he hit over 300 in June. Overall this year, he's hitting 243, has 13 home runs, nothing special. 4 plate appearances short of a bonus of only $200,000.
Well, let me just say, the ownership in Pittsburgh, and I can say this as a former print journalist, they also own a chain of newspapers, and they are notorious cheapskates, not just as baseball owners. They don't get the hate that you see in Oakland, but they should.
Locally, they do. Oh, dude, when I, again, looking stuff up, people in Pittsburgh, well, you know what? The columnists in Pittsburgh are split, and it's interesting that you say that the owners own a newspaper. Now that clicks, because one of the op-eds I read was like, well, this is actually a good move for Pittsburgh and yada yada. That makes a lot of sense.
I can't remember the chain that they own, but I know people who've worked for that chain who've had to buy their own pens and notebooks without reimbursement. Like they've had to write it off on their taxes and be reimbursed by the government.
Every news station I've worked at has given me reporter notebooks and pens.
It's just a standard. When at the paper I worked at, it was just a given that when you needed a new notebook, you just go to the shelf and there was a fresh supply of notebooks and pens. How else are you supposed to do the job? It would be like making Pirates players pay for their bats.
Buy your own soda in the clubhouse, like that other out west. No, but here's the thing. So Tellez has a good June, and then he cools off. July, August, he becomes a liability. Pittsburgh has a guy named Connor Joe, who I think is the future at first. Why do you wait until 4 plate appearances short of this bonus? That makes this a news story. If they cut Rowdy Tellez, if they send him down in the middle of August when he's slumping hard, no one cares. They look at it as a baseball move.
Everyone shrugs their shoulders.
This is not a baseball move.
No,
and the fact that you try to mask it as such is insulting to Pittsburgh fans, I think.
I agree. It's insulting that they do it, and then it's insulting that they try to tell you, well, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes?
I mean, the Pirates don't have to reinforce the perception that they're cheap, but that's what they're doing. And if you're a free agent, so like Big Tim, 6'4", 270, pretty decent first base, do you want to come to Pittsburgh?
Oh,
I don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not after this. I mean,
I can absolutely see. I can see Pittsburgh being blackballed on the free agency market by anyone, worth a damn.
And if you're one of those two pitchers,
oh, you don't want to go there.
Those two pitchers, they'll go through arbitration. I don't know if I sign a long-term deal there because, all right, yeah, I'm going to be good, but I want the team to be good. I want to be relevant. I want to be playing in some of these important games that we're going to talk about here coming up. I don't see that happening in Pittsburgh, and it's things like this that cause that.
And here's the thing. It doesn't have to be that way. You look in other sports, who's the best franchise, for the last 5 years in the NFL? Kansas City Chiefs. That's not a big market. And then, you look at the Royals. Yeah, they had some success, but they couldn't keep their core group together.
They're back. They're in the playoffs now.
But I'm just saying they fell off there after they won the series in, 2015. They had a couple lean years where they're wandering in the desert. It doesn't have to be that way. You can follow a model like the NFL with a salary cap where everyone's on a level playing field. And
you would have to have a salary. You have to have a salary floor then, and that's the problem in places like Pittsburgh and Oakland or Miami or places like that where, they won't spend. But that's a good off-season discussion about how owners should better spend their money, because we're actually getting into the exciting part of baseball now. Our postseason is set. I mean, Tuesday, the first round of the playoffs start, and in the American League, we know who's in. We just have to finalize the standings. New York is on top right now. Both New York and Cleveland lost last night, so the Yankees have a 1-game lead for the top spot, 2 games to play. Houston's your other division winner. They're going to open the playoffs on Tuesday against whoever the third wild card is. Right now, that's Kansas City. The Tigers are playing the White Sox. They just broke the record for most losses in a season. So I'm pretty sure we can set the American League playoffs like this. I'm going to say New York is going to get the 1 seed. Cleveland's going to be the 2. And I think we're going to see Kansas City at Houston in the 3-game series.
That'll be
fun. I think you're going to see Detroit at Baltimore in the other 3-game series, with those winners going to Cleveland and New York respectively.
How about the Tigers? My God.
I'll tell you what.
Won, 32 of their last 45 or something like that?
I'm not super thrilled about these playoffs as a Yankee fan either way. I mean, the Tigers are the hottest team in baseball right now. They're 9-1 their last 10. They are, like you said, on fire.
Yeah.
And Baltimore's 8-5 against New York this year. So both of those matchups, considering the Yankees are probably going to get 5 days off after Sunday, that's worrisome to me.
Yeah, and I know I've said it before, I don't like the layoff. I don't feel, and I'm not saying this as a Red Sox fan, I'm trying to be objective. I don't feel great about the Yankees' chances of coming out of the American League.
I don't know about their chances of getting out of the second round.
Yeah.
But
the AL
I'll root them on. I'm sorry.
I said the AL is kind of stacked because we haven't even talked about the Orioles really, and I think the Orioles, they might be the most talented team in the league.
They just put, and I have to look, they just put one of their pitchers on the injured reserve, and Grayson Rodriguez is going to miss the postseason. I don't know if he's their number 2 starter. I mean, that could be a big loss for them, but.
And pitching has been a problem for them. When I say they're talented, I'm talking position players.
Yeah, well, the Yankees have solid position players if they can hit. Home runs don't play in the playoffs. And, Aaron Judge just hit, I think it was 58, which is great. And Juan Soto is right there with him. Austin Wells is a pleasant surprise. But you have to be able to scrap runs together against top pitching.
I just saw a stat that the collective batting average in the major leagues this year, I want to say it was 248.
I would have said 240. I think it was 243 last year. Yeah, 248 is.
Wait, maybe it wasn't it was the lowest since the dead ball era. Lower than 68, like the year of the pitcher, like with Bob Gibson and Danny McClain winning his 30 games.
Launch angles and trajectories and that kind of analytics that has changed the game.
It's feast or famine.
Yeah.
You can strike out 200 times if you hit 40 homers. That's kind of what Kyle Schwarber's whole career has been.
And when Aaron Judge first broke in, he led the league in strikeouts twice, but he's actually gotten a lot better not chasing outside sliders. He's matured as a hitter, but largely
straight pitch. He hit very much.
Curve slider bat was definitely afraid. Stanton's a guess hitter like you'd never believe.
Oh yeah,
and some of his swings just look so awkward. When he guesses wrong, he could hit the ball a mile, but
Stanton is total beer league. Yeah.
Sometimes you just need you need a single. There's a runner on first. Give me a fly ball, not a strikeout.
Yeah, I think Moneyball works over a 162 game season, but when you're talking about you have to win 3 out of 5, 4 out of 7, that's when you're talking about situational baseball. And that's where I think a sample size that small, Moneyball maybe doesn't hold up.
I think when you say situational baseball, to me, that reminds me of National League Baseball a little bit. And what's going on in the National League, we don't know as much. I mean, if you look at the standings here, nothing is set on the top seed. LA has a 2-game lead, but we'll likely pencil them in at the top. The Brewers won the Central. They're the 3 seed. The rest of it, this is like wild stuff. The Padres are in. They closed the season with our defending National League champion Diamondbacks. They won last night. They have 2 more games. The Mets are finishing the regular season with the Brewers, sort of. The Braves finishing with Kansas City, playoff team, sort of. What's not listed here, Wednesday and Thursday this past week, the Mets and the Braves were postponed in Atlanta. So on Monday, the Mets will travel to Atlanta for a doubleheader, and that could totally mean playoff implications, figuring out where is where. This is what I think the National League playoffs is going to look like. We know the Dodgers are 1. We know that we think the Dodgers are 1. We think the Phillies are 2. We know the Brewers are 3. Between the Padres, Diamondbacks, Braves, and Mets, there's 3 spots left. It looks like the Diamondbacks are probably the odd team out, but seeding and the Monday doubleheader is going to be big. How exciting is this? How excited is Major League Baseball about Monday?
That's going to be a lot of fun. It reminds me of, I can't remember what year in the 90s when the Mariners and the Angels had to have a play-in, like a one-game
game 163.
Yeah.
I thought the Rays had one of those too with didn't the Rays in Boston have a 163?
Yes.
And David Price pitched for one of the teams. Since he pitched for both, I don't know who he pitched for that play-in game.
Yeah, I don't know why the Mariners-Angels one sticks out. Maybe just because I was watching so much baseball.
I don't think – I mean, if the Diamondbacks lose out, though, it's not as dramatic because I think both teams make it in. It's just where they're seated or who's got the home game in the wild card.
Right. But
that could be important.
It's a nice little appetizer to the playoffs. It's a game that means a little more. Or a doubleheader in this
doubleheader, yeah. Well, game 1 might mean everything, and game 2 might have. Let's get the September call-ups in there because it doesn't matter. I just think it's neat though that they have those. The way the National League is wrapping up their schedule, everyone who means anything for the wild card is playing a playoff team, whether it's against each other, San Diego, Arizona, or playing against Kansas City.
That like truly, that's why this is my favorite time of year. Not just because it's soup weather, which I will be making soup later, by the way. But we get playoff baseball, NFL's in full swing, college football's in full swing, hockey's going to be starting up, NBA preseason starting in about 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks. It's just it's a veritable smorgasbord.
It is. I prefer the heat. My wrists and my ankles don't like the moisture out there. I've been shaking my hands a lot because my hands hurt. But I'm with you. As far as the time of year goes, I love October baseball.
This is the weather of my people, of the Irish people. We're a gloomy, rainy. We come from just a miserable little island.
My people in Brindisi were grape farmers or olive farmers, so that's whatever. Since this weekend has everything we want and all the fun drama that fans want, let's talk about something the fans have not taken a liking to. Obviously, with the playoffs comes money. Another financial story. I told you 3 of them. What do you do when playoff money is not enough? Well, Major League Baseball has decided to partner with a clothing company to advertise on helmets during the postseason. And this has been done before in the opening series in Japan or Korea. They had the advertisements on the helmets. When I looked this up and when I got my little picture here, I saw a lot of negative comments. I don't think any of the comments I saw were positive about something like this. What do you think about this?
The traditionalist in me has the same knee-jerk reaction similar to the people online where I'm like, oh, no, terrible. But then, like, when I really think about it, like, whatever it was, 20 years ago when they started doing, like, the ads behind home plate.
Okay. The green screen
that weren't actually on the field, but yeah. And people like kind of, threw up a hissy fit about that. And we don't care now. It's just,
I don't think I cared back then. To me, the uniform is a sacred thing, and we're not NASCAR. The NASCAR uniform is a different story. Soccer has a different thing. This is a recent trend where advertisements have invaded what I look at as, like I said, it's a sacred thing that I don't need to see it. And I'll take it a step further. When Major League Baseball started putting patches on the sleeves, the Yankees have an insurance patch. I'm not even going to say their names because the heck with them. If I ever needed insurance, I would go anywhere except for this company.
I'd rather let my house burn down.
I saw this picture right here. You can take one of your Yankee jerseys to the stadium, and for $15, they'll add this patch so you can have an official patch. I can pay $15 to be a walking billboard for that insurance company.
Yeah. I mean, that's clearly stupid to charge fans for the privilege to advertise for one of their corporate sponsors.
I'm sure somebody's done it.
Well, then they're an idiot. I'm sorry if one of our viewers did that, but I'm also not sorry. But the advertisements on jerseys to me is no different than football players wearing pink gloves for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, or rainbow colored jerseys for Pride Month or whatever. It's just at the end of the day, it's just clothes.
I was never a big fan of the alternate jersey. Like the alternate jerseys, like if you're a Colorado Rocky, that's fine. If you're the Miami Marlins with that weird statue in center field, okay. And sell more merch, that's cool. As a fan of someone, I think if we drafted a top 5 iconic sports jersey, the Yankees are definitely in the top 5.
The Yankees are and again, I say this as a Red Sox fan, those are like the tuxedos of baseball uniforms. And
Boston had an iconic look too. They have an insurance agency on their sleeves. Maybe insurance is a big draw for baseball fans, but as an old schooler, this didn't sit right. The whole the playoff baseball helmet thing, it just feels like an unnecessary money grab that I wasn't a fan of. And I'm not a fan of this.
I'll be honest. I'd be less a fan of ticket prices going up.
If this resulted in lower ticket prices,
so
now I'd get on board. If you want to have the insurance companies supplement, bleacher tickets so that, a family of 4 doesn't spend $265 to a game, hey, now, yeah, sign me up for that. But we both know that would not happen.
Right. Yeah. It's lining someone's pockets.
And it's not ours. And it's but hey, that's big day. An hour of sports headlines. Massive day in sports, and we'll draft sports today. We get to the light side of what we're doing here. It took us a little bit longer this week to think of what we were drafting, because nothing really just jumped out at us. And I was talking to somebody at work about the expansion draft of I forget what year it was, but when the Rockies and Marlins came in,
93.
I remember ESPN did a whole they showed the draft, and teams were able to protect up to 20 players or something from their 40-man roster, but then the Rockies and Marlins just got to cherry pick whoever they wanted. We're going to start our team, and we're going to take your first baseman. We're going to take your closer, and there was nothing teams could do about it. So, I thought, being that it's football season, Tim, you and I are 2 people, and we could start our own NFL franchises. One of us could be in Sacramento, one of us can be in Nashville, but we need to start a team, and we need to cherry pick from current NFL teams.
What are you going to name your hypothetical franchise?
Oh, so where am I?
Well, so my franchise, since I'm in Bloomsburg, I'm going to do like Paul Brown did, and I'm going to name it after myself. We're going to be the Bloomsburg Hares.
Okay. So I have to be in Chambersburg then. Shucks. If I have to go local and think, what is this area noted for? This area is actually noted for peaches. I don't.
Least favorite fruit.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of peaches, but so how about the Chambersburg peach pits?
See, I like.
We're hard and nobody likes us.
I just like the Chambersburg peaches, like the Rockford peaches from a league of their own.
That feels very much like female baseball.
Yeah, well, then you can draft Gina Davis.
I actually have her listed when we do the baseball version of this. Football version, though, I'll stick to NFL teams. So here we go. We're gonna get the Magic deck here. They're all different colors, so as you can see, everything's legit. We will stop here. So this card is yours. Are we going black or red?
I went red last week, and I'm going to go red again.
Okay. Then looks like I got the top pick.
Wesley Snipes wins this round.
Ooh. So the rule on this, so once you draft a player, that team is off is off limits for anyone else. So when I pick, or when I explain this to you in our text, so as to not throw you onto the scent here, I said if I draft the Bears kicker, you can't draft the Bears punter.
Right.
And spoiler alert, I don't think the Bears kicker and or punter is on either of our lists.
Who is the Bears punter this year?
I don't know, but Caleb Williams came in all strong saying he's not going to have to. They drafted a punter in like the fourth round. Oh, I remember this because Caleb Williams said you're not going to have to punt a lot, and he's probably punted 75 times.
Was it the kid from Iowa?
Yeah, kid from Iowa.
I know who you mean.
So
that's his name now. The kid from Iowa.
Kid from Iowa. Yeah. So I'm gonna take from the defending champions. I think that's probably a smart move. And I'm going to build my team around how I think a football team should be built. And I'm going to take someone who is largely considered to be the best at their position. And I'm going to take a guy named Creed Humphrey, the center for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay. That's not where I thought you were going with that.
So the other guy who you probably thought I was going, he's off the board.
Right. Yeah, he was going to be my number one because it's a quarterback's league. I was obviously going to take Mahomes. But now I can't. Yeah. But I still want to build around a quarterback. So I planned for this contingency. I'm going to take Josh Allen.
Josh Allen from Buffalo is a great pick. He made my short list. So, and he's having a great year.
I texted you the other night when I was watching him where I was like, I think I really like Josh Allen now. Because for a while I was like on that train where I was like, oh, he turns the ball over too much. But I think he's won me over. Plus, he's just a good dude. He just seems like a good dude.
Does Buffalo have a new offensive coordinator?
Oh, boy. I know they changed coordinators in the middle of the season last year.
I think that his turnovers, I think, might end up being down because of that. So
yeah, because he did sort of start to, when I say take care of the ball, it makes it sound like it was all his fault. But his turnovers did start to go down like the last 6 or 7 games last year.
Yeah. Okay. So cool. So Josh Allen, your top pick, awesome. I'm gonna continue building along the line. Because I'm going to get a quarterback. I think. I mean, I assume. I don't think you're taking 2 of them. So I'm going to take.
I'm taking 5 of them.
That's from a team. I actually had 3 potential picks from when I was putting my list together, and then we came up with the rule that you can only take from one team. So I'm going to get them off the board. I'm going to take who I consider to be the best offensive tackle in the game, Penei Sewell from Detroit.
Okay, that's a good pick. Boy, you're making me reconsider because I do have linemen on my list, but further down. But I'm actually going to go. So obviously, I said it's a quarterbacks league, but it's also about getting pressure on the quarterback. I want Myles Garrett, second pick.
Okay, that's. I have no qualms with that. Garrett was actually on my list again. So let me write this down for you. Myles Garrett, the end. He was my third choice at defensive line. Aiden Hutchinson was my number one because young, fired up. But taking Sewell away from Detroit, Aiden Hutchinson's gone. Myles Garrett, he lights out, and I totally agree that
he's a problem.
If you're building a team, I like to build along the line, and because of that, I mean, I'll just take your pick into my pick because I don't want you doubling up. I'm going to take TJ Watt from Pittsburgh.
I had three names there as like my plan A, B, and C for an edge guy, or he was one of them. Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett. Obviously I love the TJ Watt pick. I know I just said that Myles Garrett's a problem, but TJ is. I mean, they're.
I watched the Steelers.
So similar.
The Steelers played. Who did they play last week? Because I was watching them, and Fields had a decent day. But Watt is never not in the backfield.
Yeah, he's.
And I'm trying to draft young-ish players. I think Watt's on the older, but if we're picking for a team now for the next 5 years, he's still going to be, solid pick.
And it's funny that you mentioned age because one of the things I texted to you when I was like, are we taking the player currently? Are we basing it on their potential? So now I am going to go to the offensive line. This may seem like a bit of a reach, but he's a player who I think he's already been pretty impressive, but I think he's just going to keep getting better. His father was a very outstanding offensive lineman for the Chiefs for a long time. I'm taking Joe Alt.
Okay.
I want a big tackle to protect the edge.
In San Diego. I tried to shy away from rookies because they're rookies, but he is watching the highlights of how the Chargers have played. He's a big reason why they've been winning games.
Yeah,
I think Pittsburgh just played. Pittsburgh and San Diego just played last week. I think that's the game to watch.
Yep.
And played well.
That's one where I'm buying now because I think the stock is just going to go through the roof.
So no, absolutely no issues. I'm going to go stock as well, and I don't know what your thoughts are of the guy, but he, in my head, he's got the potential to be the best interior defensive lineman in the game for many years to come. I'm going to take a guy from Philadelphia. I'm going to take Jalen Carter.
Oh, yeah. Last week, he dominated that game as much as an interior lineman can. He had his guy on roller skates the entire day. He was so disruptive. He's a big reason why they were able to slow down that New Orleans offense that had been just creating headaches for their, obviously the Cowboys, I'm very high on him. He's great pick.
And getting him at 4, I feel good.
And also a little bit of a Scroogey to me to take an Eagle. No, I can't take any Eagles.
There are plenty of Bears out there.
I want that kid from Iowa. No, I don't.
I'll look up his name for you.
I'm going to go, there are so many receivers that taking a receiver just kind of feels like, like anyone I could take with this pick, I could take someone of comparable value. So I'm not going to go receiver, but there aren't many guys, and I know he's hurt, but I want Christian McCaffrey.
MC. So here's the Here's my thought on running. I didn't even have a running back on my list. I broke my chart down. Quarterback 1, 2 sets of offensive linemen because I think the center is the most important position. Yeah, I know tackles are that's whatever. I went 2 sets of offensive linemen, 2 sets of defensive linemen. I have a couple of receivers and I have a couple of defensive backs just in case I needed them. But with running backs in today's game, we'll draft a running back in the 5th round. He'll be fine. McCaffrey changes the game to an extent because of his flexibility in the passing game as well. And he's such a strong inside runner where like the Niners, they utilize Deebo Samuel on the outside more, but CMC, he cuts well on the inside. He reads his blocks well. And even also, Purdy's among the best in football. Yeah.
It feels like over certainly this year, but over the last 2 seasons that the game is trending more to teams are more open to running. Not quite as much as had been traditionally, utilized. Like we saw it last week, with the Ravens, where they just kept feeding Derrick Henry and he just kept tearing off runs, when they beat Dallas. So yeah. And like you said, in the passing game with McCaffrey, he's just a Swiss Army knife. Yeah. Please and thank you, Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, that is absolutely a fine pick. I'm not yucking on that yum at all.
Stop yucking my yum.
So now with my 5th pick, obviously since you went quarterback 1, that I figured I could wait till 5, and here's where it gets tricky, because if the teams that are left, I love Lamar Jackson, but he's got some years on him. He's been around. Joe Burrow, I love, but Joe Burrow may never be healthy for a full season again.
And the hair, the bleached hair.
I don't mind the hair.
He looks like Ellen DeGeneres, but I digress.
Justin Herbert was a possibility until Joe Alt got picked. I think with this pick, it's without having an offensive weapon around him, but having 2 really good linemen, I think it's safe that I can build an offense in free agency or through the draft. The next best quarterback who's young and who's not injured, I'll take C.J. Stroud from Houston.
Okay, I like that pick. I
mean, I don't. I would have rathered a guy like Herbert, I think. Yeah. Or Lamar, I'm building for a long-term future, and Stroud will be in the league beyond Lamar. I mean, Lamar Jackson is a significantly better player.
Are you still there?
But did I lose you?
Did I lose you?
I can hear you. Uh-oh. Well, Tim, we'll get Tim back here. I think Lamar is a significantly better player currently, as we'll bring Tim back in. Are you with us?
Yeah, you dropped there for a second.
I don't know. It's me picking a Buckeye quarterback. That'll do it.
That was the last straw. Friendship over.
So I was saying I think Lamar Jackson is clearly a better quarterback, but I think Stroud will be in the league well beyond Jackson from this point. So if I'm starting a team from scratch right now, that's where I'm going.
Yeah, when you were saying all that, I thought you were going to go Dak. I thought you were going to take Dak Prescott possibly. But I think Stroud's the better pick because of his age. And because, like I said with Alt, I think the ceiling's high on Stroud.
I need to get him some weapons, though. I gave him 2 linemen, and I have 2 defensive linemen. I'm building the team from the interior because that's what I feel is important in football.
It's funny you say that because I was going to take Chris Jones, but obviously Chiefs are off the board. So I want a really good shutdown corner. So I'm going to go Jalen Ramsey.
Oh.
That was another one where I was plan A, plan B between Jalen Ramsey and Sauce Gardner. But give me Jalen Ramsey.
Well, no problem with that from Miami. So that would have taken Tyreek Hill off the board because he was one of the ones I had listed. So did you have anybody that didn't make the cut for you that you were like, well, maybe?
Yeah, let's see here. So I had Mahomes or Allen for quarterbacks. Like I said, I had Parsons, Garrett, Watt. I had really, because I didn't think you would take Joe Alt, so he was the only offensive lineman I had sort of set aside. Chris Jones was on my list, McCaffrey. I had, if I wanted to go receiver, I had Tyreek or Jefferson.
Those are mine. I think those were the two, or Devontae Adams that make a lot of sense at wide receiver.
And Fred Warner was also on my list, but I decided I wanted McCaffrey more than I wanted Warner.
Patrick Surtain II for Denver at defensive back. I had Sauce Gardner. I wasn't thinking about Jalen Ramsey. The other lineman I was looking at, names that you wouldn't know, maybe like unless you looked them up. Deion Dawkins from the Bills. The Bills offensive line is awesome. The Detroit Lions offensive line, between Sewell and their center, if you were going to take a center and you got Humphrey, I would have taken Frank Ragnow from Detroit. Jordan, I don't know how to say his name, but he's an Eagle. Jordan Mailata.
Yeah, Jordan Mailata. Beautiful singing voice too.
Good choice at lineman. As far as defense, Aiden Hutchinson was on the list. Micah Parsons was on my list. The Panthers, for as sorry as they are, have a really, really good run-stopping nose tackle, Derek Brown. Mm-hmm. I would have liked an interior lineman there. But this was a fun little activity.
It's an interesting window into I think it's very interesting that you went center, number one overall.
I personally, the center's the quarterback of the line. Like they're the ones that have to call out the defensive schemes.
100%.
You need a smart center. And that's the one thing that, Patrick Mahomes, he may be the best quarterback in football, and people in Chicago will bemoan the fact that they traded up to take Mitch Trubisky instead of Patrick Mahomes. But let's get one thing straight. If Patrick Mahomes is drafted to Chicago 3rd overall, like they didn't even trade with San Francisco, we're not talking about Patrick Mahomes as potentially the best quarterback of all time.
Here's the best way. I think when you draft quarterbacks and they don't pan out, I don't think it's a quarterback that fails the franchise as much as it's a franchise that fails the quarterback.
The system that they go into.
I think Sam Darnold and what he's doing right now is a good example of that. Yeah. That the Jets maybe just didn't groom him well.
Baker Mayfield.
Mahomes, Mayfield's another great example. And, Mahomes was just dropped into a perfect situation where he had a coach who is, a bit of a quarterback guru in Andy Reid, and he had the pieces in place around him.
I think Brock Purdy is another situational, he was Mr. Irrelevant, so he was a good story, but Kyle Shanahan calling and drawing up plays around an offense that has an Ayuk, a Samuel, a CMC, just right place, right time. If Purdy gets drafted by, Houston, another team.
He's Will Levis.
Totally
he goes to Tennessee.
Totally different. I lost it. It's gone. I'm not even worried about it.
This is our 40s, bud.
No, with starting a brand new franchise, at least in my head, I'm a line guy, and that's maybe the old school in me. Whereas I think a kid might have looked at it and said, I want Mahomes, I want Jefferson, I want Hill, and I want give me Travis Kelce or George Kittle or give me Devontae Adams too. And then the next thing you have you and me on the offensive line trying to block TJ Watt. I'm sorry, that's not a recipe for success. Ask Tim Couch. Right? Or David Carr. David Carr had to get sacked 175 times his rookie year.
I remember being so upset that the Eagles were so bad that they should have had the number 1 pick, but the Browns were coming back to the league and they got number 1. And I was like, but I wanted Tim Couch.
Was that the year McNabb got drafted?
McNabb?
That was the year McNabb got drafted. That's awesome.
That was the year because it was Couch, it was McNabb, it was Akili Smith, it was Cade McNown.
Oh no! Don't say Kate McNown.
And it was Dante Culpepper. They were the 5 in the first round that year.
Oh, Cade McNown was so bad. He was so bad.
Yeah, that redheaded lefty.
My goodness. So we'll see what the folks on the interwebs think about who won. It'd be an interesting. I think we both approached it differently. We'll see where people's philosophies are going forward.
I almost took Mo the bartender with my 5th pick. I don't know if he can play football. He certainly doesn't care about his body.
He's ugly as all get out. So
yeah,
as a quarterback, I'm not sure you want to go tackle him. Mo. Well, entertainment world. Mo is a TV star. We're going to switch a little bit from the world of sports to entertainment here with our top 5. The 35th anniversary of the premiere of Goodfellas was on September 19th.
34th.
The film released in Venice in 1990, in the United States, September 19th, 1990, based on the true story of New York mobster Henry Hill, as told in Nicholas Pileggi's Wise Guy. The film reunited Martin Scorsese with Robert De Niro, 2-time Oscar winner. So coming at you live now from our home office in Junedale, Tim and I are going to draft, or at least our lists, our top 5 Robert De Niro movies. And I told you about this texting before. I think you're going to be surprised at my list. When I looked at the filmography, I was surprised at the big name movies that I haven't seen because I'm a terrible person. I came up with a list of 7 though that would qualify for my top 5.
And I'm just going to preface this: Goodfellas is my favorite movie, so Goodfellas is excluded from inclusion.
That was part of this. Yeah, we said no Goodfellas because I think Goodfellas probably would have been my number 1 as well. So you take out the victors from our college football fight songs, and
right.
You have 5 other songs, but De Niro has a filmography that's worthy of 5
He's had a decent career. Yeah.
So why don't you lead us off, Tim? What was your number 5?
So first, I'll tell you some of the ones that I can, because I listed them here on my little sheet of paper.
You have your lo-fi. I have paper.
I'm
but it
also
doesn't
old school. Some of the ones that I considered but didn't quite make the cut were Mean Streets, because I'm a big Scorsese fan, obviously, because I'm Goodfellas. Cape Fear, another Scorsese movie, and De Niro's great in it. And Casino did not make my list. A little too similar to Goodfellas, a little derivative.
Gotcha.
So those 3 did not make my list. But my number 5, The Godfather Part 2, which The Godfather Part 1 is also one of my 5 favorite movies of all time. I don't think Part 2 is quite as good. It's a little, just by the nature of how it's told with 2 stories running parallel, it's a little disjointed.
It was hard for me, and I'll tell you what. Let's just get this out of the way. Godfather 2 is also my number 5.
Okay, good.
And I honestly thought it was going to be higher for you. That's why I thought it would be a surprise for you. Now, the first time I watched it, it was very reminiscent of me watching Pulp Fiction the first time.
Okay.
I had a hard time following it, and partially because I've been hit in the head a lot, but partially because we're going from time to time. It took a few watches for me to that's what's going on, that's where they are, but I liked his portrayal of young Vito.
Yeah, to me him as the young Vito is the highlight of that movie, and that's not to take away, because I think Pacino's better in Part 2 than he is in Part 1, even though Part 1's the better movie.
I won't fight you there,
but yeah, like De Niro, like if I remember right, he spent like a month living in Sicily to get the dialect down.
That's awesome.
It won him his first Oscar. I know you'd mentioned before he won 2 Oscars. His first one was supporting for The Godfather Part 2. And yeah, he's not speaking English. It's mostly subtitled for a good chunk of the movie. And so for an English speaking audience, you would think that would detract from the performance, that you can't understand what he's saying unless you're reading it on the screen, and yet he's so emotive that it doesn't matter. He could be speaking Esperanto.
I'm just talking. There is a gross giant bug on top of the right curtain. Please go get it right now.
There's a bug. Okay.
Like it's big. Okay, we're going to the pumpkin patch. We'll be back.
Oh, so give me 1 second. I'm gonna go kill a bug in my house.
Okay.
I love live TV. Talk to the people.
So now that Max is gone, let me tell you some embarrassing stories about him. There's this one time we were doing a podcast live, and he had to go kill a really gross bug. That was pretty embarrassing.
You want to see it?
Of course. I think I need to see it.
Gone now, but holy cow! So here I come to save the day. It was a big stink bug, but whew, you never know what you're going to get here on Soup and Meatballs.
We finally got a guest on the show,
and we killed it and we put it in the toilet.
Let that be a lesson to all future guests.
So as far as my number 5 was Godfather Part 2. My honorable mentions, Casino didn't make my list either, and not because it was too derivative of Goodfellas. I didn't like where the story led, and it's a true story, so what are you going to do? I didn't like where the story led with Ginger McKenna's character. I thought they went really hard on Lester, that character.
Oh yeah.
And the end of her story was really sad. And the way the tug and forth with the kid, that never settled well with me. And then having kids myself, I don't like that part. I love the behind the scenes in the casinos. I love that. I think that's super cool. The score and the soundtrack, I think it rivals Goodfellas soundtrack, but I'd have to look at it like to see whether it goes above it. It's a double disc soundtrack, so it might be close. So Casino made my honorable mention, and I Analyze This as an honorable mention as well. I think the tie-in with the mob movies, but in a comedy form, you're good.
I have a different De Niro comedy further in on my list. It's not Meet the Parents or Meet the Fockers.
I'm not big on those movies. They didn't even make they didn't make the list anywhere.
Yeah, Meet the Parents is fine. If they just made that one movie, it's fine.
It's not making the top 5.
All right.
Your 4.
Should I jump ahead to number 4?
Yeah, what's your 4?
Number 4 is Heat with him and Pacino. It has one of the great shootouts in movie history. Just an absolutely stacked cast with, Val Kilmer and Tom Sizemore. And Pacino has the showier role. He's really kind of eating the scenery a little bit. But even in like the more subdued role, I think De Niro gives the better performance. And it's just a movie that it's 3 hours long and it just flies by. It's just a great crime movie. If you haven't seen Heat, see Heat. What's that?
I've heard good things about Heat. I'm a terrible person. It's just one of the movies I haven't seen.
Oh yeah, you should check out Heat. It's so good.
Now I'm getting errands. I think she thinks we were done with our show, but whatever. So I think Heat's probably a good pick. I'm not gonna. I don't know anything about it, so I can't add to it. My number 4 is a movie that I only saw because of my appreciation for Bill Murray, and it was a Bill Murray movie, Mad Dog and Glory.
And the great thing about that movie is that you would think that they would have De Niro as the gangster and Bill Murray as the schlub, and the fact that they swap it is very inspired.
And De Niro plays this hard on his luck cop who's, in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he helps out this mobster, and as a payment or something, Bill Murray gives Robert De Niro No, I lost the actress. Uma Thurman.
Uma Thurman.
He gives her Uma Thurman for a week. You can have Uma for a week, but then they fall in love and it's all happy. And the fight scene at the end was, it's like it was such a staged like middle school fight.
And that's such. I don't know how many people have seen Mad Dog and Glory, but it's such an underrated movie.
It's not one. I hadn't heard of it until like my mom started just pumping me with VHSs that Bill Murray were in. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll watch this. And like, yeah, it was a very entertaining movie. It made number 4 on my list for my favorite De Niro movies, and I'm not even sure it's a De Niro movie, right?
And I think your mom just inundating you with Bill Murray VHS tapes is also how we saw Quick Change.
Yeah,
with Geena Davis and Randy Quaid, another underrated movie. Classic.
I'm sitting here thinking, if we did the same thing for Bill Murray, the bank robbery movie is probably on the list because it's such a cool movie. It really is.
It's very good. So now you get my comedy pick. One of my favorite movies of the 80s. It's De Niro. I almost said Bill Murray. It's Robert De Niro and Charles Grodin in Midnight Run. Have you ever seen Midnight Run?
Another one that I'm not familiar with. No.
De Niro is a bounty hunter who has to deliver Charles Grodin, who is an accountant who embezzled money from the mob, and it's like an action comedy. It has like this like rogues gallery of 80s character actors like Joe Pantoliano and Dennis Farina and Yaphet Kotto, and Charles Grodin. It's one of John Goodman in The Big Lebowski is my favorite comedic performance ever, but Charles Grodin's right up there. He is so great in that movie, and De Niro is the straight man. They make such an unexpected, wonderful comedy team.
If nothing else, this list is at least giving me some motivation to go out and seek out these movies. I mean,
you really should see Heat and Midnight Run's on if you have Prime. It's streaming on Amazon Prime.
Check that out after football. So it gives me something to watch during hockey season, I guess.
There you go.
My number 3 is I don't know if it's probably less of a De Niro movie than it is the other guy, the star of the show. But De Niro starts out as the heel drill instructor, whatever you want to call him, diving school guy, and he comes back and he does the baby face turn at the end when he wants his 12 from Cookie. Men of Honor is number 3. To me, that's a tremendous movie. And De Niro plays a really hardcore, staunch, old school racist guy who you kind of hope and feel that at the end he's changed a little. But maybe not a ton. Like he probably still has the deep fetid feelings, but he saw how, Brashear's courage and stamina kind of won him over a little at the end.
Now, that's one I haven't seen. So everything I know about that movie is like in the early 2000s, like I would be watching like something on FX and they would show commercials for Men of Honor. And it was De Niro with this like over the top Southern accent. And he had this line that just, I've never seen the movie, but it sticks in my head where he goes, "Be careful what you wish for." Like he says the word "for," like no human being has ever said that word.
So I mean, I don't know it that well. So I'll give you a little bit of part of it. So De Niro plays a legendary diver, and now he's training Navy divers. And part of the story was Cuba Gooding Jr.'s. I can't think of his first name. It's Brashear is his last name. Brashear comes in as the first African American trainee, and obviously this is a time when that wasn't going to fly, but Brashear was such a good diver, like they couldn't fail him. So at the end, like when they're going through their finals, they're given a bag and they have to assemble a pipe underwater, and the water's freezing and all this stuff. So the head guy, so the guy above De Niro, basically tells him, this guy doesn't pass. Like figure out a way that he fails. So all the divers jump in the water, and then the bags get thrown in. So all the parts of the pipe are in the bag. So what they do to Brashear is they cut the bag. And so all of these tiny nuts and bolts and screws, they're all on the ocean floor. And they keep yelling down at him, quit. You can't do it. It's impossible. Quit. And Bashir's character stays under. Like, most of the other guys are putting this pipe together in 30, 40 minutes, and that's their average. They pass. This is a pass-fail test, so you either get it done or you don't. Right. So Bashir's character, obviously, he gets the pipe put together amazingly, heroically in 9 hours that he's under the water. He is absolutely freezing and probably hypothermic, and he passes. He becomes a Navy diver. And then, as part of his deployment or whatever, he's on a ship and he's injured, where he loses a leg in an accident. So they fit him with a prosthetic, and the ending scene is where this new hotshot Navy lawyer says, "Well, we're not going to reinstate you to diving status. We're going to put you behind a desk." And Bashir's like, "No, I this is all I've ever wanted in my life." And the final scene is where he has to prove that he can walk 12 steps with this 800-pound suit on. And De Niro's character comes out, and he is like the Mickey to Cuba Gooding Jr.'s Rocky, yelling at him, give me my 12 steps. And Bashir is just absolutely annihilated by the end of these 12 steps because he's walking on a prosthetic and he's carrying 800 pounds with him. So De Niro has a really good performance. Cuba Gooding Jr. has a tremendous performance. So you probably look at that as a Gooding movie more than a De Niro movie, but this is where it's a really good movie. I think you would dig it.
And, it's funny that you say, it's not a De Niro movie, that he's sort of like this complimentary flavor, because that's also true of my number 2, which is Jackie Brown, which, people think of as like a Pam Grier. It's a Quentin Tarantino's follow-up to Pulp Fiction.
It's the Pulp Fiction sequel, not a sequel. Yeah.
And people think of it as, Robert Forster was nominated for an Oscar for that movie, and he's fantastic. And Pam Grier's in it, and Michael Keaton, Bridget Fonda, blah, blah, blah.
I've seen it, but I can't tell you anything about it. I saw it in theaters once, and that was 100 years ago.
I can tell it was one of the great movie-going experiences of my life. Back when I was a freshman at BU, Bloomsburg had it's now the Capitol Bar, where like college kids go to drink overpriced cocktails and grind on each other.
College stuff, yeah.
Yeah. But before it was that, it was the Capitol Theater, and it was like a second-run movie theater, And so, for
$1, you go in and get a movie.
And there are a few things I love more than going to the movies. So every weekend of that first semester of college, I was going to see something or other, to the point where the lady who sold the popcorn knew my name. Nice. And it was just this beautiful palace. It was like a 1940s Art Deco movie theater. It had this ornate balcony and everything. And that's where I saw Jackie Brown in October of 1997.
Wow, that's cool deal.
Great movie, great theater, great memory.
All right. So my number 2 I think is going to surprise you like a lot.
Not Rocky and Bullwinkle, is it?
It's not Rocky and Bull.
Okay.
I have seen Rocky and Bullwinkle, and he's a cool Boris, but no. It's a movie I've actually started to see a lot more now, like when I'm scrolling through TikTok, and I'll see clip at a time. He plays just an old sage who is almost mentoring the boss of this company, but not really. It's a movie called The Intern.
Oh, okay. Now that's also one I haven't seen, but I do remember it.
It's not an Academy Award winning style movie, but he plays an old phone book salesman who gets picked up by, there's a company, this big tech company decides to do a senior intern program, and he comes in because he needs something to do. And who played Catwoman in the new Batman movies?
Anne Hathaway.
Anne Hathaway. Anne Hathaway is the boss of this company, and he ends up as her intern, and he helps her out. They find themselves, and Renee Russo is in this movie, and she becomes De Niro's love interest at the end, which is kind of cool. So it's worth a watch. Not going to blow your socks away oh my gosh, this is tremendous writing. It was just entertaining to me, and that's the kind of movies that I like. I like to be entertained. The Intern did it for me.
I'll be honest. I love Anne Hathaway. I love Renee Russo.
All the reason to check it out.
My number one, and I'll preface this by saying, I feel like I'm in good mental health. I feel like I'm mentally balanced. I don't feel like I have any sort of like psychotic tendencies. I only say that because my number one movie is Taxi Driver, which did inspire John Hinckley to try to kill a president.
Ooh, well,
and so I think the movie's taken on a reputation as being, sinister because of what it inspired.
I can see that.
When really it's one of my favorite. It might be my favorite De Niro performance.
Well, it made your number one. Besides Goodfellas, it made your number one here. So,
well, I think he's better in Taxi Driver than he is in Goodfellas. I like Goodfellas more than Taxi Driver, but Taxi Driver is one of my 10 favorite movies.
And it's another one. Believe it or not, I haven't seen because I'm a terrible person. I know that you're talking to me and that stuff. I know the big quote, but
I do believe it's on Netflix or it might be on Prime. I can't remember which, but it is streaming. And it is an incredibly disturbing, very violent movie. It features a 13-year-old Jodie Foster playing a prostitute.
Yeah.
So it's not for, it's not a family film. But it is, so.
I'm surprised Raging Bull wasn't on the list for you.
I admire Raging Bull. I like Raging Bull. But if Raging Bull were on TV, I don't know if I'd watch it from start to finish.
Okay.
But I mean, Raging Bull's very like I had a Raging Bull poster in my dorm room in college. Like,
yeah, I could have seen that on your list. That when I was going through, that was I forgot what he's gonna talk about that. But
Raging Bull was one I considered The Irishman, which came out a couple years ago.
Yeah, I saw that. That was I think actually about a group up in Pittston.
Yeah, it's based on a book called You Paint Houses, or I Heard You Paint Houses. And it just came out last year, and I think it's too soon to consider it for a list like this. But Killers of the Flower Moon, I really liked, and I really liked De Niro in it. Like if De Niro didn't already have an Oscar, I fully believe he would have won an Oscar for Killers of the Flower Moon.
I mean, my number one was not a surprise to me when I looked at it when I put the list together. I'm like, yeah, that's really good because it was rather quotable. When De Niro says you can get further with a kind word and a gun than just a kind word, that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to put The Untouchables at my number one, and I think his portrayal of Al Capone was probably as close to what Al Capone probably was like. I can imagine just angry most of the time and then spitting and laughing at the face of police when he got the upper hand.
Did you know?
And he cracks the guy with a baseball bat, so you gotta like that.
He was not the first actor who was cast as Capone, by the way.
Who was that?
Bob Hoskins, who was Eddie Valiant in Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Okay, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, he was originally cast, and then De Niro was able to commit, and so Brian De Palma, the director, paid Bob Hoskins $200,000 just for his time, even though they didn't film anything. And like Bob Hoskins wrote him a thank you note saying like, "Thank you for the money. It would be my pleasure to be cast and not act in any of your future movies."
I can take this money and give it to Matt Skolka from UNLV because he needs it more than I do.
Yeah, right.
That's cool little trivia here for our top five. So there we are, top five De Niro movies. Let us know what we missed. Is there something you like a little more than what our number ones were? Be kind of cool. But Mr. Smarty Pants time, and as usual, there's two questions, but you're going to get to pick one of them.
Okay.
So I saw this online. I'm like, wow, I never would have thought this. So let me throw this. It's a football question.
Okay.
Just straight NFL trivia. Which NFL team has most recently won 15 regular season games in one season?
The Panthers.
It's hard to believe.
Was it the Panthers when they went 15-1?
There, Mr. Smarty Pants is on. They were 15-1 back in 2015,
and they lost to the Broncos
in 24-10 in Super Bowl 50. So that's bring it harder next week, I guess.
Wait, now I have a trivia question for you.
Oh my heavens! Okay, well, let's see how bad this gets.
And it's similar to one that you had asked me earlier when you'd asked me about home run leaders per decade.
Okay.
Would you care to guess? And I'll give you each decade. Who was the leader in wins, pitching wins?
Pitching wins. Oh my goodness.
So from 1900 to 09, who would you guess?
I don't know if that would be pre-Walter Johnson. Babe Ruth.
So it's Christy Mathewson, but I'll give you credit for Walter Johnson was 1910 to 1919, so I'll give you credit for that. There's no way either of us would have gotten 1920 to 29.
Bob Selleck.
Did you say Tom Selleck?
Bob Selleck.
Oh. It's Burley Grimes.
Oh, that's a great baseball name.
Isn't it?
I love that.
Now, 1930 to 39, you might get. And I can give you a hint that he's known more commonly by a nickname that you share with this pitcher.
Oh, is it Lefty Grove?
It is Lefty Grove.
Okay, that's the only reason I was getting that.
I don't think you'll get 1940 to 49, but have a crack at it.
Whitey Ford.
A little too early for Whitey. It's Hal Newhouser.
Yeah, he'd have been in the 50s and 60s. I'm Bob Selleck.
No, it's Hal Newhouser.
That wasn't.
So 50 to 59 is not Whitey Ford. I'll give you a hint, though. It's a lefty. Not his nickname, the hand that he threw.
God, I want to say Koufax, but I don't think it's Koufax.
A little too early for Koufax.
Too early for him. I'm trying to think of lefty pitchers I know from back then. I mean, I'm stuck on Koufax and Carlton, and that they're most certain. They were
Hall of Famer. Hall of Famer, pitched in the National League.
Robert Roberts wasn't a lefty, and that's another. I think that's too early for him.
No, that's the right era for Robin Roberts, actually, but it's Warren Spahn.
Warren Spahn, okay, it's a name I know.
I believe he still has the record for most wins by a left-handed pitcher, 363. 60 to 69 might. It's not Koufax, but he pitches, or he pitched in the same division. Well, it's all the National League then, but they would currently be in the same division.
Boy.
Very distinct delivery, very often imitated delivery.
Oh, I'm just trying to get the same division as the Dodgers right now. I'm stuck on the Diamondbacks and Rockies. Like, they didn't even exist in the 60s.
Is it Brandon Webb? It's Juan Marichal.
Yeah, I wouldn't have gotten
that. 70 to 79, an American leaguer who is you've seen this man in his underwear.
Oh my goodness.
Same division as the Yankees.
Okay, so it's not Nolan Ryan.
Nope.
Jim
and that
Palmer.
rules out like it's Jim Palmer.
Jim Palmer. Yeah, okay.
80,
and I haven't seen him in his underwear. If I have, I've blocked it from those.
Oh, he did like famous commercials for like
Hanes or
Fruit of the Loom.
Fruit of the Loom, one of them. Fruit of the Hanes.
80 to 89 is someone we've mentioned on the podcast before.
God, I want to say something stupid like Dave Stewart, but
that's a great guess, but it's not Dave Stewart. Recently inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Okay, so it's how recent? Wasn't Messina? It wasn't.
He was the Veterans Committee guy. Known for coming up big in the postseason.
It wasn't Jack Morris.
It's Jack Morris.
Jack Morris? Oh wow.
Yep. I feel confident you'll get 90 to 99.
There's a lot to pick from. Were there the most wins of the '90s? Greg Maddux?
It's Maddux.
Okay, yep. I mean it would have been, to me, it would have been Maddux or Pedro or then Randy Johnson, but
because Maddux had, I forget how many years in a row of 15 or more wins. It was like something like 18 or 20 straight years. You definitely know 2000 to 09 very well. Another lefty.
It's not Bumgarner, is it?
No. You know this guy very well. I'm sure you've seen him pitch live.
That Randy Johnson?
It's Andy Pettitte.
And
would you believe
it? I know he's the all-time wins leader in the postseason, but as far as a decade goes, that's surprising to me.
Yeah.
I mean, he played on good teams. He played on teams enough to win.
Yeah, even when he went to Houston was fantastic.
They made the World Series, yeah. So yeah.
And then 2010 to 2019.
Max
Scherzer. It is Max Scherzer. Well done.
Scherzer was 1, Verlander was 2, and I don't know who 3 would have been, but yeah, that was a coin flip.
Yeah.
I don't think I did terrible.
No, I think you acquitted yourself pretty well.
Some of the older school guys like Juan Marichal would have been we could have been here till Michigan, Ohio for that one to come out.
Now, if you ever need to give a fake name to someone, just say, "Oh, my name, I'm Grimes,
Bob
Burley
Selleck.
Grimes."
I love that. We should almost do a top 5 of baseball nicknames. That's a thing. Down the line. So with your list now, here's your choice.
Okay.
You can stick with football with a Carolina Panther twist because they won 15.
Okay.
Or based on the new Netflix series on Vince McMahon that I haven't seen yet, we can segue to pro wrestling for your list.
Let's go pro wrestling. I'll tell you here.
If you go with the NFL, the list has a possible 28 answers.
Okay.
If you go pro wrestling, the list has 90, but I whittled it down to 30.
Oh, let's go pro wrestling.
You're going to go pro wrestling. So, in the world of professional wrestling, the Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship is viewed as the workhorse title. The holder of this belt would be called upon to defend more often at house shows and on TV. So, your goal, can you name the 30 professional wrestlers who have held the Intercontinental Heavyweight title for the longest amount of time? So, if I held the title for 50 days, lost it, and won it back and held it for 50 more days before I lost it again, I would have had it for 100 total days.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a single run. It could be multiple runs. We're just looking for the top 30 of who's held it the most.
Okay. Honky Tonk Man.
He is on the list. He is number 2.
Ultimate Warrior, because he beat Honky Tonk.
The Ultimate Warrior is on the list.
Rick Rude.
215 days. Rick Rude, I believe, just missed. So Rick Rude, an Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion, yes, did not hold it enough time to make the list. You know what? Now I'm questioning myself because this is a terrible thing. I see this. There's a guy listed twice. So
scandal.
I'll give you Rick Rude as a champion, but I don't know if he would have been 31 on the list.
Okay. Savage.
Randy Savage is number 4 on the list.
Oh boy, now I'm gonna struggle. Because I stopped watching wrestling in like 19. Oh, Bret Hart.
Bret Hart. does not make this list. Former Intercontinental Champion, though. You are correct. Some of these names are new, and one of them is very old. I'm not sure you're going to get this guy who shares his name with a tremendous starting pitcher for Boston in their history.
Yeah, the new guys, I'm gonna just totally.
I would have too. Yeah,
shift that because I was just telling my one friend who I recommended the McMahon documentary to, that I probably stopped watching wrestling around 92 or 93, just because it became a really bad soap opera. It was always a soap opera.
There's definitely some guys from our era that are here.
What about someone like Haku?
Haku, I'm not sure ever was an Intercontinental Champion. He's not on the list.
What about Snuka?
Jimmy Snuka. He might have been a champion, but he is not on the list.
How about Big John Studd? Paul Orndorff.
Mr. Wonderful.
Mr. Perfect.
Oh, well, okay. Mr. Perfect is in fact on the list. I don't see Orndorff though.
Okay. How about Junkyard Dog?
I don't see JYD.
Boy.
So there's actually two guys that share the same nickname. Amazingly. One of them was a defensive lineman for the Hurricanes.
Oh, The Rock?
So which one?
Dwayne The Rock.
So Dwayne The Rock Johnson is on the list.
What about someone like Shawn Michaels?
Michaels is on the list. Shawn Michaels is actually, believe it or not, he's further down the list, but he's most certainly there. 201 days.
How about Stone Cold? Was he ever Intercontinental?
So Steve Austin was an Intercontinental Champion, but he didn't hold the belt as long as it would have taken to get on this list. Oh, another double. Oh, this is terrible. I really should have vetted this. I'm a terrible person.
I don't know if there are any people I know for certain. So at a certain point, I'm just going to be listing names.
Names. So I'll give you the leader in the clubhouse right now, who broke the Honky Tonk Man's record is one of the new guys. His name is Gunther. He's like a German dude who's a really strong guy. Yeah. Do you know who the very first Intercontinental Champion was?
What year was it?
If I click the link and look, he was active in the 1950s.
Bruno Sammartino?
No, he would have won the title in 1979.
Harley Race?
No, we're gonna get a guest here. Come here, little girl. I'm live with Tim right now.
Hey,
who got a pumpkin patch sticker? That's cool. She got
a sticker.
Or you got some face paint? That's great. You look pretty cool. I wish I had a pumpkin patch sticker on my head.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
So
Jen didn't get us stickers?
No, it's paint, not a sticker.
Oh.
So the guy I'm telling you, he was one of the Stooges back in the Attitude Era. His name is Pat Patterson.
Oh, sure. He comes up in the documentary.
He was
for a not great reason.
A man affectionately known by Jesse Ventura as Chico.
Tito Santana
made the list. Another guy who used to say the word Chico a lot. He called himself the bad guy.
Oh, Razor Ramon.
Razor Ramon's on the list. Our number one when we drafted them.
Flair?
Ric Flair made the list. I never knew he was an Intercontinental Champion, but he's on the list here.
I thought he came in and won the.
He was just the big belt. The Hammer.
Oh yeah.
And so the other Rock was Don Morocco.
Oh yeah. What about Hercules? Did he win Intercontinental?
He might have. He didn't make this list. The other guys on the list, Pedro Morales, the old school guy. He held the belt for 424 days. Some of the new guys that we probably wouldn't have gotten: Shelton Benjamin, Cody Rhodes, Jeff Hardy, The Miz, Shinsuke Nakamura, Dolph Ziggler, Drew McIntyre. People like that made the list. Ken Patera. I didn't even realize Ken Patera held the Intercontinental Championship, but there we are. So
wow.
So I mean, that's the list of Intercontinental Champions. You're probably better off going with that than the football one. So.
And also, you really should watch the McMahon documentary. It is.
I'll get there. I'll get there eventually. So.
All right.
So last segment and rank roulette. I think we're flip flopping, right?
Yeah, I came up with the 5 things for you to blindly rank. The only unifying theme to these 5 things is that there are 5 things that I know you love. That's the only thing that binds these things together.
Are they things or are they people?
Both.
Oh, okay.
It's a potpourri. And to avoid confusion, since we rank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I assigned them letters A, B, C, D, and E.
Oh, okay.
Just so we don't confuse, like, oh, I ranked number 3, number 1. So just pick a letter A through E, and then I'll tell you what it is, and you rank it.
Well, let's go with C.
C is Michigan football.
I'm on a Michigan high right now, so like they're defending, reigning, undisputed national champions. They just knocked off USC, so I mean that's big. So I'm going to hedge my bets a little bit, and I'm going to put them at number 2.
Okay. All right. So Michigan's number 2.
Michigan's 2.
So now you have A, B, D, or E.
We'll go E.
E is prescription medication, antibiotics, heart medicine, aspirin.
I mean,
just anything to help your health.
I take a couple, and I think they help. I hope, but I'm not that I ever want to get rid of them. I'm going to put prescription medication at 5.
Okay.
I think there might be things I love more than my medicine.
This is a real window into your personal values. Okay. All right. So now we're down to A, B, and D.
Let's go with D.
D is, and for people who don't know, you were the first person in our friend group to get your driver's license, and your first car was a 1980 Ford Granada.
Oh, the Granada.
D is the Granada.
Oh, wow. I mean, the Granada itself was a terrible car. Let's get that straight.
Oh, absolutely. But the memories associated, the trips to the chicken
when we drove out of town, like we would go to Wilkes-Barre, we'd go like to Scranton Red Barons games. We tailgated out of the Granada. That was
drinking a case of A-Treat sodas.
Dude, I mean, and this is where ranking things just gets hard because I don't know what is else out. The Granada memories of the Granada are tremendous, but the fact that the Granada itself caused all kinds of angst with the transmission, and you remember leaving school and it would like.
Oh yeah, every time it started, I think the Catholic Church would qualify as a miracle.
A little bit, yeah. We're gonna put the Granada at 4. I feel better about the Granada than about prescription medication, but
so Michigan's 2, the Granada's 4, prescription medication is 5.
Yeah.
So now you're left with A and B.
A and B. Let's go with B.
B is your lovely bride, your wife.
Oh yeah, that's why number 1. Number 1. Not even a question. That's absolutely, and she's not here anymore, as she like walked into our shot with our daughter.
So that's how we know you mean it. She's not even here.
Yeah, well, that best friend in the world, and we joke. My brother-in-law asked me the other day, because the PIAA is facing an official shortage. And we were at the game yesterday, and they were begging people to become football referees. And my brother-in-law asked, he's like, would you ever be interested in reffing? And I said, no, I get yelled at enough at home. And he laughed, and he told her about this. And she's like, I don't really yell at you that much. Do I?
No. Stop telling people I yell at you.
No, it was a good laugh though. But no, I'm one of the fortunate ones who, you know, you joke about, you know, the old ball and chain and stuff. But she puts up with a lot of my idiocy. We joke that, you know, she has 3 kids. I'm the anchor that's kind of holding life back a lot of times, and she hasn't clipped me yet.
Truly the perfect woman, except for her choice in husband.
Yeah, I mean, I joke with her. I tell her all the time that she settled, and she's like, no, I didn't. I'm like, the hell you didn't. Absolutely, you settled.
So that is a good use of the number 1 slot.
Oh yeah, that's
Michigan was 2.
That's why I asked if there were people involved, because I'm like, just in case.
And then you had
football's the number 3.
Well, you had the Granada 4. Prescription medication was 5, meaning your number 3 is meatballs.
You know what? This is for not knowing what's coming up. If I had to relist this, I don't think it's changing.
The only thing I think you might swap Michigan for meatballs. I think if you had this list ahead of time, you would have gone Jen, meatballs, Michigan, the Granada.
Not right now. Like I said, I'm on the high of the reigning, defending, undisputed national champions, and we just beat USC at home. They just kicked off. I mean, it's 12:10 now, local time. I'm sure they'll continue their hot streak. Yeah, I feel good about this list. So I'm surprised prescription medication made the qualifying thing for you.
No, I think you did well.
That's an interesting look into the psyche of Soup and Meatballs Max.
Well, I can see we went over 2 hours, and
I told you. I mean, heavy sports day between, you know, Major League Baseball playoffs starting next week, Georgia, Alabama. Breaking news at the top of the hour here at 10 o'clock. Karl Anthony Towns to New York, and I forgot to put Matt Sluka on the rundown, and just lots of good stuff happening. That it was valuable time spent, and I had a good time talking it out. So I hope you did too.
I think it was our best show yet.
And one of these days, you know, we'll cut it down under 2 hours. But the people that are watching, they have all week to sit through and watch. So until we start doing this daily, I can't do this every day.
But also, you really need to watch the McMahon documentary. Just going to say that a third time before you watch.
Who do the Bears play this week?
Oh boy, I forget.
They should have beaten the Colts. They have the Rams. They should beat the Rams too. Maybe I'll watch it instead of the NFL. And we'll...
You know, it might be foolish, but I'm optimistic about the Eagles playing at Tampa. You know, if the defense shows up like they did last week, they can play with anyone.
And my dad's prediction of the Commanders winning the division, not looking terrible.
No,
I still like Dallas or Philly, but you know, I will note at the preseason when we did our things, Bob came in and said Washington was going to win. So
hey, we'll see. Jaden Daniels looks studly.
He does, and Caleb's got to grow because now
that line's not doing him any favors.
He drops back 46 times and he's pressured 38 times. That's again, it's placement. I mean, if you flip-flopped, if you had a redraft, probably take Jaden Daniels first. I don't think he's having any more success than Williams is. So,
well, and it goes back to, you know, the Sam Darnold example, you know.
Look, it's like real estate, location. And the rotating turnstile of I don't know if I sent you the picture. I sent a Bears fan buddy of mine the 4th and 1 play call where they ran the speed option with 4 of the Bears offensive linemen were on the ground.
Oh, you didn't send that to me, but I did see it.
Oh.
Like within a second of the snap, they were all. It's like they all fainted at once. It's like
so bad.
It's like they saw a mouse or something.
So bad. But, well, let me go see if I can go buy some meatballs. You go make some soup.
I'm gonna make some
see
soup.
Who's winning the Michigan game, and we'll do this again next week. What do you think?
I think we should. Let's keep doing it.
Sounds like a plan. So everybody watching at home, thank you. Hit like, subscribe, check us out on Instagram and all the other places in the world, and